George Barrett lived a modest life, yet he was the wealthiest man in his heart. He worked as a mechanic in their small town, providing for his wife and two sons, Jimmy and Danny. They lived in a cozy house with a neat yard, just across the fence from the Johnsons, a family struggling to make ends meet. The Johnsons had two children, Tommy and Sarah, who were the same age as George's boys. Though the families weren't particularly close, George's inherent kindness bridged the economic divide between them. Whenever George took his boys on outings, whether it was a simple road trip to a nearby lake or a visit to the local ice cream parlor, he always asked Jimmy and Danny to invite Tommy and Sarah. He treated them like his own children, never making them feel the weight of their financial struggles. The children played together, caused mischief, and formed a bond that went beyond their socioeconomic differences. Little did George know that this simple act of kindness would have a profound impact 15 years later. George had grown up in a similar economic situation to the Johnsons. His father was a factory worker, and his mother took in laundry to make ends meet. George knew the sting of poverty and the joy of unexpected kindness. This background fueled his empathy and desire to help others without expecting anything in return. The Johnsons were good people, hardworking and proud. Mr. Johnson worked multiple jobs, from janitorial work to delivering newspapers, while Mrs. Johnson sewed clothes for a small income. Despite their efforts, they struggled to provide more than the basics for Tommy and Sarah. Their home was humble, and their clothes were often hand-me-downs, but their love for each other was unwavering. The neighborhood where the Barretts and Johnsons lived was a mix of modest homes and struggling families. While some families managed to get by comfortably, others faced daily challenges. The economic disparity was evident, but George's actions often blurred these lines. His generosity was not just a personal trait, but a quiet rebellion against the invisible walls that divided their community. One summer day, George decided to take all four children to the county fair. As they walked through the bustling fairground, Tommy and Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement. George handed them tickets for the rides, bought them cotton candy, and ensured they had the same joyful experience as his sons. Some parents gave George odd looks, unable to understand why he would go out of his way for someone else's children. But George saw the fair through the eyes of Tommy and Sarah and knew he was doing the right thing. As the years passed, the children grew closer. They shared dreams, supported each other in school, and faced life's ups and downs together. George's influence extended beyond mere generosity. He instilled values of kindness, empathy, and resilience in all four children. In high school, Tommy showed a particular interest in medicine. Inspired by a local doctor who had saved his mother's life during a difficult childbirth, he dreamt of becoming a doctor. However, financial constraints loomed large over his aspirations. George noticed Tommy's dedication and offered him a part-time job at his garage to save money for college. George also introduced Tommy to Dr. Stevens, the local physician, who became Tommy's mentor. Sarah, on the other hand, had a knack for art. She painted vibrant scenes from their town and sketched portraits of her friends and family. George encouraged her passion, buying her art supplies whenever he could afford them. He even arranged for her to meet a local artist, who took Sarah under her wing. One autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the air crisp, George received a call from Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Johnson had been in a car accident and was in the hospital. Without hesitation, George rushed to the hospital and stayed with the family throughout the night. Unfortunately, Mr. Johnson's injuries were severe, and he passed away a few days later. The Johnsons were devastated. The loss of Mr. Johnson meant not only emotional pain but also financial turmoil. George stepped in, offering support in any way he could. He organized a community fundraiser, rallying neighbors to help the Johnsons through this difficult time. It was during this period that the bond between the Barretts and Johnsons deepened, forged by shared sorrow and compassion. Eventually, Tommy and Sarah went off to college. Tommy, with the help of scholarships and the money he had saved working for George, enrolled in a pre-med program. Sarah attended an art school, thanks to a grant she received after winning a local art competition. Jimmy and Danny also pursued their dreams, with Jimmy going into engineering and Danny starting his own small business. Though the children were now young adults and their paths had diverged, the bond they shared remained strong. They often reminisced about their childhood and the unwavering support of George, who had treated them all with equal love and respect. 15 years later, George's Garage had become a well-known establishment in the town, not just for the quality of work, but for the kindness and integrity that George embodied. One evening, as George was closing up shop, a sleek car pulled up. Out stepped Tommy, now Dr. Thomas Johnson, a respected surgeon in the city. Beside him was Sarah, an accomplished artist whose works were displayed in galleries across the country. "Mr. Barrett," Tommy began, his voice filled with emotion. "We wanted to thank you for everything you did for us. Your kindness changed our lives." George, taken aback, simply smiled. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, Sara interjected. You did what few would. You gave us hope and opportunities. We wanted to show our gratitude." Tommy handed George an envelope. Inside was a letter expressing their heartfelt thanks and a substantial check. They explained it was a donation to expand George's Garage into a community center where young people could learn skills, receive mentorship, and find support. The grand opening of the Barrett Community Center was a momentous occasion. The town gathered to celebrate, and George was honored for his contributions. The center offered various programs, from vocational training to art classes, and served as a safe haven for children from all backgrounds. George watched with pride as Jimmy and Danny, now adults with families of their own, volunteered at the center. They taught skills, mentored the youth, and continued their father's legacy of kindness. Tommy and Sarah's success stories inspired many in the community. They frequently visited the center, giving talks and workshops, and providing scholarships to deserving students. The ripple effect of George's kindness had created a wave of positive change that touched countless lives. George Barrett's simple acts of kindness towards his neighbors' children had far-reaching effects. His willingness to treat Tommy and Sarah as his own led to the creation of a community hub that nurtured the next generation. The story of George, Tommy, Sarah, and the Barrett and Johnson families became a testament to the power of compassion and empathy. In the end, it wasn't the financial disparity that defined their relationships, but the shared humanity and the small acts of kindness that built a bridge between them. George's legacy lived on through the community center and the countless lives it touched, proving that true wealth lies in the generosity of the human spirit.